Ever noticed how in old paintings and photos, Victorian women all seem to have these massive, elaborate hairstyles? It wasn't just a trend, it was an obsession. And the story behind that hair is way more complex and a little darker than you might think. We're talking about a time when a woman's hair was her crowning glory, but also a heavy burden, a form of currency, and even a measure of her morality. So let's untangle the fascinating and often strange world of Victorian hair culture. First, let's set the scene. The Victorian era, from about 1837 to 1901, was a time of strict social rules, especially for women. A woman's place was in the home, and her value was tied to her piety, purity, and domestic skills. And right at the center of this was her hair. Long, thick, healthy hair was the ultimate symbol of femininity and status. It was a woman's primary asset, her most celebrated feature. Think of it like a luxury handbag or a fancy car today. It instantly told people who you were, or at least who you wanted to be. For a respectable middle or upper-class woman, her hair was a full-time job. It had to be long, often reaching the floor, and immaculately kept. But here's the catch: a proper lady would never, ever wear her hair down in public. That was considered incredibly improper, almost scandalous, something only fallen women, children, or mad women in asylums would do. The only place a woman could let her hair down was in the privacy of her own bedroom, for her husband's eyes only. So all that glorious length had to be piled up on her head in incredibly complex styles. We're talking intricate braids, massive buns, twists, and curls, all held in place with an arsenal of hairpins. These styles changed with fashion, from the sleek, center-parted buns of the early Victorian era to the enormous, frizzy creations of the later decades, often bulked up with pads and frames. Getting ready in the morning wasn't a quick brush and go. It could take an hour or more, often with the help of a lady's maid. The sheer weight of all that hair and the pins could cause constant headaches, neck strain, and even bald spots from the tension. It was literally a pain to be beautiful. And keeping it clean, that was another ordeal. People didn't wash their hair as often as we do today. The process was a huge undertaking. It involved using harsh soaps made from lye or concoctions of things like rosemary and rainwater. Then, drying all that hair without a hairdryer could take an entire day. So, daily maintenance focused on brushing. 100 strokes a day was the rule. This was thought to distribute the natural oils, keep the hair shiny, and remove dirt. The image of a woman sitting at her vanity, brushing her long tresses, became an iconic symbol of Victorian domesticity. But what if you weren't born with a magnificent mane? Well, the Victorians had a solution for that: false hair. The demand for hairpieces, wigs, and extensions was enormous. This created a booming and often grim market for human hair. And where did all that hair come from? Primarily from the poor. For a young woman living in poverty, selling her hair could be a lifeline. It was one of the few assets she possessed. Hair harvesters would travel through rural villages and poor urban neighborhoods, offering a small sum for a head of healthy, long hair. Imagine the desperation of a mother needing to feed her children, or a young girl trying to scrape together a dowry. Cutting off her hair, her one socially recognized symbol of feminine beauty, was a huge sacrifice. Newspapers would run ads looking for hair of a specific color and length. The most prized was maideness hair. Hair that had never been cut, especially in desirable shades like blonde or auburn. This created a stark contrast: the wealthy woman adorning herself with hair purchased from the head of a poor woman who had to sell her own beauty just to survive. The beautiful hairstyles of the rich were quite literally built on the poverty of others. The obsession with hair went beyond just style. It bled into mourning and sentimentality. This was the age of hair jewelry. It sounds a bit creepy to us now, but it was incredibly common and cherished back then. After a loved one passed away, a lock of their hair would be carefully preserved. Skilled artisans would then weave this hair into intricate designs, placing it inside lockets, brooches, rings, and even creating elaborate wreaths to hang on the wall. This wasn't seen as morbid. It was a deeply personal and tangible way to keep a part of the deceased person with you. In an era with high mortality rates, especially among children, these mementos were incredibly precious. It was a way of holding on to a physical piece of someone you loved, a way to make their memory permanent. So, when you see a Victorian locket, there's a good chance it holds not a picture but a delicate, woven curl of hair. Finally, hair was deeply connected to morality and control. The strict rules about how hair should be worn were part of a larger system of controlling women's bodies and their behavior. The elaborate, restrictive updos mirrored the restrictive lives many women led. Keeping every strand in place was a metaphor for keeping a woman's passions and impulses in check. A neat, tidy hairstyle signaled a neat, tidy, and obedient mind. Messy or loose hair suggested a wild, untamed, and therefore dangerous nature. When a woman entered a workhouse or a prison, one of the first things they did was cut her hair short. This was done partly for hygiene, but it was also a powerful act of humiliation and stripping away her identity and femininity. It was a visual punishment, a way of marking her as an outcast. So, the next time you see one of those portraits of a stern-looking Victorian lady with a mountain of hair on her head, remember it's not just a hairstyle. It's a story of social status, grueling maintenance, economic disparity, deep sentimentality, and social control. It represents the complexities and contradictions of the Victorian age, all wound up in braids and buns. It's a powerful reminder that throughout history, even something as simple as hair has been loaded with meaning, shaping and reflecting the lives of the people who wore it. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this dive into history interesting, please give this video a like and subscribe for more stories hidden in plain sight. Let me know in the comments what other historical fashions you're curious about. See you next time.